We're in the B class assets. Those are your teachers, your policemen, your hospital workers, people that have nice, jobs that are able to have good,
Yeah,
what do you want to say, good characters.
for
They're
sure.
not just sitting there and saying, "Oh, I'm going to live here because I can." And we got so lucky that people in our buildings understood that, okay, you don't have to pay the first 2 months.
Yeah,
We
we got
had
it.
to. We understood that, but they all cut up, so we didn't lose a thing
Got it.
in our properties. Luckily, everybody was very kind and thoughtful, because if we have to pay the mortgage, why don't you have to pay your rent?
Yeah.
Right.
So I was going to ask you that. So you said B class. Like, what's the average like rental? If there is one, is it like 1,500 a month?
Yeah, so
2,000?
we have so in the B
Yeah.
class that we owned, it goes from 1,100 up to like 1,700, depending on the area and the units that you're
Okay.
renting. So yeah, so
And
we're
you
like
found that's
more.
kind of like a sweet spot.
That's such a sweet spot. It really is, because for me, that is the working class. It's the people that are renting in the B class. They're always have a job.
Yep.
They're worried about their credit. They're worried they have conscience. They understand they're not people that are just wanting to live off the government. And there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
if you have to live off the government because of a certain issue.
For sure.
That's great. I understand that. But these people that we rent to, these working class people, they really always like to keep their credit in good shape. They have a good mentality of like, hey, I rented this spot, I have to pay for it. So it's just a great spot, like a great asset class to invest in.
Definitely.
I think the A class, so A class is more, the higher end. You're talking about here, like in Miami Beach, you're talking about,
Yeah.
5,000, 6,000,
Yeah.
rents. And those type of asset class for me are very financial based. They only want to live in those apartments for a year, because these are like new attorneys that just became attorneys,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
here to try out the waters. Hey, do I like this area? Do I want to buy a house? Am I going to get a promotion? Am I going to get, sent to another state to work? So the A class is, a lot of people love to invest in A class because your rents are extremely high. You're charging some nice rents.
Yeah.
But it's more of you have a big turnover every year. You're getting, you're not getting repeat tenants.
No, that's just
Yeah,
because
it's
that's
not as consistent.
It's not
No.
consistent.
It's like-
because
Right.
that's right around our rent. Right, we live like right down the road from here.
Yeah.
And like it is, we every year, as much as we love the place we're in, at the end of every year, it's kind of like an experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, and that's what I've talked to you, Dad, about it. Like it's enough rent where I'm like, should I be getting a house? Because 5-6K a month, it's not like astronomical or anything, but it's enough where it's like I'm spending almost 100K a year and I have no ownership in this whatsoever. So every year at the end of the lease, I've never stayed at a place longer than a year.
Right.
And are you kind of saying in the B class they will actually stay?
They stay. You have long-term tenants.
Yeah.
You have at least, they stay for more than 2 years for sure. And there's
Yeah.
tenants that we have had in the buildings that are 10 years,
Wow.
15 years.
Yeah, no, I've never imagined that.
So these are tenants that are long-term. I like to say long-term tenants. And then for example, I could only speak for me or for us, myself and Bobby. We have our buildings where we make sure that those buildings are kept up to like our standard. If I
Nice.
could live there, like I go into these buildings and I'm like, you know what, I could live in this building. No, and my customer service, my property manager, the leasing agents, anybody that works there has very high standards to give to those tenants. If you don't treat those tenants great, I don't want you working for me, because
100%.
they're paying us rent. So you got to give them the best service you can for them to stay there. And then also they're like, if anything breaks in their units or if anything's not working in the building, that has to get fixed within 24 hours, 72 hours max. So I give them the best service I can within the class asset that they're living in. So for me,
Yeah.
keeping these tenants it's a big plus, because the turnovers cost you money. having to go put that that unit back on the market could take a week, can take a month. You don't never know. So you have a vacancy thing. So, I try to treat my tenants as like if I wanted to get treated. So I like to keep my tenants long term, and so that's why I like that B asset.
I was going to
class.
say that's because the thing is too with the A class, even though the rents are really high, there is sometimes really long downturns where the place, like I think our place was open for like 6-7 months.
Oh yeah.
And then and my realtor told me that, so he was like, "Yo, you can say something lower than what it is because they just want somebody in there." So I think we got like $700 off a month from our place.
Easy.
Because the guy was like, it's literally 6 months, and he still has to pay the mortgage on that. So yeah, I feel like B class is better.
Yeah, I love the B class. It's to start off, we started off with the C class. And
okay, what's that range?
So C class is you're paying anywhere from probably $800 to about $1,200 maybe, something in that range. You get a lot of government assistant programs in these buildings. I love them.
Yeah.
I still love them, to tell you the truth. We don't do them because we like to buy bigger assets. But C class, if you concentrate on Section 8, which is the government pays either full, half, or a percentage of the rent for the tenants, you're getting that rent on a monthly basis. On the 3rd of every month, you have your money in your account.
From the government.
From the government.
Yeah.
You have Section 8. Now, people say, yeah, but they trash your buildings. These are people that don't care. They bring in their whole family. They're supposed to be 2 people. Now you have 10, and they're always drinking or this and that. And that's not, it is true, but it's not true if you care about the way you run your business, right? So when I used to have my C asset class, I used to underwrite my tenants the exact same way that I underwrite my tenants in the B class right now. So I have to make sure that they don't have a criminal background. I make sure that they've never been evicted from anywhere. And I make sure that they understand that they cannot have, 20 people in your unit. If you do, you would get evicted. So when I speak to them, and then they see how nice we would treat them and the service that we would give them, we never had any problems.
And that's probably why.
With these tenants. And to start off, when you first invest in multifamily, I think it's the best and safe way, because you know that you're going to have that money there every month, and that nobody's going to tell you, hey, I have to pay you late. You have your money in your account. So you're able to cash flow and to flow your business steady without having any kind of interruptions, So it's a great asset class to start, but you have to know how to manage it.
Okay, yeah. I feel like, do you think you could skip like the single family and go right to that? Or do you
think so. I mean, single family has its pros and it's gone. What happens with the single family? You get one single family home. That one tenant either loses his job or gets transferred to another state, or anything happens. They get sick. They have to leave the property soon, or sooner than your lease. You have no money coming in, right?
Yeah.
So now you have to scramble to find a new tenant to put in there to get cash flow. Now you have a fourplex. One of your tenants don't pay. You're at least able to flow with that money that you're getting from your other 2 tenants, your other 3 tenants. You're still getting somewhat of a cash flow. So a single family, if you're going to do that, you need to have, you need to know that you're going to have a little cushion just in case that, tenant leaves on you and that you have to replace it. So having 3 or 4 single family homes at the same time is a good start, because I find that the people that rent single family home, they treat that home like if it was theirs.
Got it. Yeah, so maintenance isn't.
The maintenance is not big at all. You're going to get a call if your AC's broke, because, they can't, or a major appliance broke. Otherwise, if there's like a little door that's loose, or you have a window's not opening and shutting, you're not going to get those constant calls that people are always complaining about. Oh, but a landlord, you get those phone calls. Those tenants are a little bit more efficient to themselves, or to be able to maintain.
Right?
Self-sufficient, right? So, but you have the pro and then you have the con that they're if they if they leave the vacancy, if they leave, you're gonna have a vacancy and you have no other income. But they're both good to start off with. Some people just don't have the money to buy a fourplex, right? But they have enough money to buy a single family home to put it out to rent. Why not start there?
Exactly, yeah.
Start is what I
Start
try
there.
to tell. Start, no matter what, start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because the business itself, if you take it on to do this long term, the generational wealth that you could create with this business is beyond.
Yeah, it's awesome. And
It's
you
beyond.
you learn through the failures. So you're going to have some losses, right? Like you're going to start with that single family home. They're going to leave or something's going to happen. You'll have to pay mortgage for 3-4 months. Nobody will be in there. But that's part of it.
That's
like,
part
just
of
the
it.
way
Yeah,
it is.
you have to make sure that you have reserves. But, starting
exactly.
in the rental investment industry, it's such a lot of people don't understand it, just like anything else, and they feel like, oh, that's so much work. I have to be a landlord, I have to maintain the property, I have to